What is going on, guys? Riles876 with another video. Today we're doing another quick build, except this time we're not making a fictional place. We're making a real one. We're making the Galapagos Island. If you want to get this map, it'll be in the link in the description below, but let's get started with this build. Okay, so as usual, whenever I start a build, you have to first start by tracing out the map that you want. This is usually very difficult because all maps that you see online are going to be square, and although Age of Empires is a square, it's kind of not. It's more of like a diamond, so it's really difficult to get get it proportioned correctly. So a lot of times whenever you try tracing a realistic map, it never turns out the way you want it to be. And you're going to see this with like nearly every map that is ever made where someone tries to make something realistic in Age of Empires. It's just never going to work out because you're working with something that's just tilted and not perfectly square. This is a diamond, which it just never works out. Anyway, so I really wanted to do the map of the Galapagos Islands that I'm looking at right now is very open and has a lot of space in between the islands, so I decided to close it up by just putting the islands closer together. It makes the gameplay a lot better. It's gonna make it more intense at the beginning of the game. Uh, so next, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to fill in all of the traced areas with basic grass for now. You could change it, but since this is a multiplayer map, you kind of want to dial it down with the amount of detail you want to have, because sometimes the detail that you put in is not going to be helpful. It might get in the way of some players, or it might like restrict some of what they're building. And so next, what I'm doing is I'm going to fill in some of the elevations. I'm looking at a Okay, shut up. I'm making a topographical map. That's how you say it. Of the Galapagos Islands. I'm trying to make sure I get it as realistic as possible without sacrificing any of like the gameplay value. And as you see, I can go back and forth the maps and find a different one that might look a little bit better. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in some shallow area where you can still build things, and it kind of increases the area of where you can build. This makes it so you're not really constricted with land. There's some other places to build. Like if you land on a very small island, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You can still build on these shallow areas that I'm building here, and so it makes it a lot more even for the players. Like if the first player who gets to the mainland, the biggest island you can see of the set, if he gets there, it doesn't mean that he's automatically going to win, because you can still go to the other islands of the set. So at this point, I'm just going to do a bit of outlining with the water. Again, I'm just getting a little bit more detail in the islands and making it seem like the water gets deeper the farther you go from the islands. This is usually the most tedious part of a build, is just doing the things that kind of just require hours and hours of just endless work. Some maps, you can notice that they don't really do that as much. So next, I'm going to fill in trees. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm doing every place where there isn't that shallow area, I'm going to put in these trees. So it gives it a bit of a contrast. So every place there's just regular shallows, I'm going to put in trees. Trees are very, very important whenever you're making a map. You need to make sure you have tons of them available, so whenever it gets to the late game, they're not scrambling around and just using trade and relics for the late game. You want to make sure they consistently have trees throughout the entire game. It's very, very important. So next I'm just going to save it so I don't lose all of this hours of work. Okay, and next I'm going to use some different kinds of trees in the shallow areas that I filled in, just so you have a little bit more extra wood, and so it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, and next comes the most important things are the resources, which first I'm putting in gold. Pretty decent amounts of gold throughout the entire map. So if you land on one island, you're no matter what, you're going to get some gold in some way. So there's no one player that you can really get screwed over by landing on a bad island. I guess you can land on an island that doesn't have a lot of land, but you're always going to land on an island that has gold on it. Next, I'm filling in stone. The main thing, I did not fill in many like paths or that kind of thing because it's going to just make it more difficult to see what you can actually place things on and what you can't. So you want to make it so you can see what you're putting things on, so it's not difficult to see. So next thing I'm going to put in the fish, which starting with shorefish, and I want to make sure that there's a ton of fish on this map, uh, because fish is the main way of food you get on this map. I want to make sure that that's how you do that. Fish everywhere. This is another very tedious step of putting fish everywhere you can. A lot of maps you'd see people just put fish where the players are going to see them, but they don't bother with putting fish anywhere else. It's just very important. It just shows attention to the detail you want to have in your map if you put in fish everywhere. Everywhere that you can, you should put in fish if you're making your own map. Make them evenly spaced out so they're not literally on top of each other, so it doesn't cause any bugs. And don't put in tons of fish. It might cause lag if there's 8 people in the game. And yeah. Okay, so next I'm going to add some berries, just in case you go a little bit too inland and don't get there, you're going to have some food. And next I'm putting in some pathways, which I really enjoy pathways. It kind of shows the player where they can expand if they don't know where the edge of the island they are on is. That makes sense, right? So you can just follow the path to find out how far your island goes. So the next thing I want to do here is a starting place for the players, a place where the players can start this map and just expand out from there. So it's not unfair to the players. So I'm just going to put a little plus sign here, and this is where the players are going to start. I'm going to kind of make it important since you can come down here and pick up gold or things like that, or relics. Like, the players are going to start here, but they don't have any monks, so they're going to go back to their islands, and then maybe when they get monks, they can come back here and collect the relics later on. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and give all the players resources. Very important. It's very annoying if you don't give players resources. Please do this if you're making your own map. It is very, very annoying if you get on a map and no one has any resources. So everyone on the starting island is going to get 3 villagers and a transport ship, obviously, so they can go out to the other parts of the island. Make sure everyone gets a fair chance by having all the transport ships at the same spot of the island, of the starting island. And everyone gets 3 villagers. And yeah. The main thing you want to do if you're making a map like this is to make it fair. So I'm putting all the players in a nice starting location. Now I'm just going to go back through the map, check all the resources, and make sure it's nice. And then we're going to go ahead and test it out, see if it's working. Yes, it is. And we're pretty much at the end of the video. And so I'm going to make it so everyone's going to see the middle, see that there's gold there. And so go through it one more time. Yes, it works. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this quick build. And anyway, you can watch this, get the map in the link in the. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you want to download this map, check